Today, in Flex in the City, we talk to Stéphane Pesch, the CEO of the Luxembourg Private Equity and Venture Capital Association, otherwise known as the LPEA. Stéphane Pesch dives into leadership, talent, and Luxembourg's private wealth vision, all that happening right now on Flex in the City. Hello, everybody. This is Rachel Trees for Flex in the City, and I am absolutely delighted to have somebody I know very well, a fabulous gentleman, the conductor of the LPA orchestra here in Luxembourg, and he's the CEO. His name is Stéphane Pesch. Moin, Stéphane.
Moin, Rachel. Thanks a lot for the invitation. Real pleasure to be here with you.
A real pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us. So I know that you're somebody I know really well, but I don't know a lot about your history and how you came to be doing the job that you're doing. So I think our listeners would love to hear a little bit about your own career journey and how you came to be doing that job.
Yeah, so that's a nice angle. So my dad is a Luxembourger, my mom is French. So I was raised here in Luxembourg, did the elementary school and then the high school, and then started my university studies in France around finance and economics. And then added on top a year of exchange in the US in Pennsylvania, which was also quite enlightening. And then I decided to come back to Europe, work first a little bit in media, because I was also quite interested by this segment before joining back, let's say, the industry of finance, of investment funds, and also in the beginning of banks.
And so tell me about your journey from working in hardcore financial services and then moving into the LPA. Tell me how that evolved.
That was also quite nice evolution. So starting first with the classical liquid investment funds, the famous UCITS, also to see their more traditional asset management at that time, quite focused on active asset management, and then moved slightly and surely into the direction of the alternatives, which were very promising. Real estate was the first family really gaining lots of traction in Luxembourg, before then also then becoming more and more acquainted with private equity and also with venture capital. And that after different and several experiences in the field, I also moved for my last step then to also a dedicated private equity venture capital specialist who was also PE owned. And that whole experience was so interesting from that perspective that I decided that if I could continue in one direction, it would certainly go into the private equity and venture capital area.
Fantastic. So LPEA, so I'm going to ask you, if that's okay, a question about the LPEA to make sure our listeners understand exactly what you do at the LPEA. And I asked our friend ChatGPT to give me a little metaphor about the LPEA. And Chat said, I'm really thinking, Rachel, about the LPEA as the conductor of Luxembourg's private capital orchestra. You've got the fund managers on strings, the lawyers on brass, and maybe the regulators on percussion. So the big question for you, what is the boldest note, would you say, that the LPA is hitting in 2025, would you say?
That's also a good question. So from now, as a non-musician, I have to say that I like the image of the orchestration, to have also all the members play together in order to reach really that high level excellence and performance. So really playing together and then reaching some new highs, specifically thanks to the Luxembourg Financial Hub, and also then the appetite of the sector to further grow and also evolve. So from that perspective, I would say thanks to our angles and main themes around public affairs, thought leadership, representing Luxembourg abroad, and also educating the workforce of talents of the future, this is something which we find really interesting and worthwhile to push forward. And all that was really possible thanks to the architecture that was built around the UCITS funds we mentioned before. And here, if I can call it a little bit like the genius or the secret sauce, was really then to recreate an entire ecosystem and success story around the alternatives, which worked quite well. And here I have to say also the famous Luxembourgish toolbox, also the business friendliness, the openness and certainly the agility were strong ingredients of that success. And all in all, we can be very proud together of what has been achieved and also what can be developed in the future.
Absolutely. So you talked about young people and young future talent. What kind of advice would you give to a young person entering the financial industry today? What would be your counsel?
Without sounding too classical, first of all, it would be having good studies, showing interest, curiosity, preparing also your career move into a specific segment. So really trying in advance before potentially even finishing your studies to get as much information and inspiration from some practitioners in advance, to also do internships. And then once you're ready, to really decide what you would like to do, because it's important to also do something which you like, where you will be also thriving. And that all in all just brings us to the right results if we then plan a little bit in advance. Because also next to that, there is the patience angle, which is very important, because sometimes you heard about stories where people leave quite often the jobs and the positions, and that's a little bit of pity, because we think here that it would be really worthwhile to also learn while, let's say, doing that specific job. So it's not changing all the time that will bring you forward, but it's really mastering what you have been doing. That doesn't mean that you are stuck and will do your entire life the same tasks and also the same missions, because nowadays such jobs do not really exist anymore, because here what is being asked is really to be able to understand the ecosystem you're working in, what the now specific needs or requirements of that specific job or function require, but also the evolution again of what will it be looking like in a few months or years, which new technologies should you or techniques should you learn in order to make that a success. And then only we can really say that, okay, now you have really shown your success, your skills, and then absolutely you should be looking at new opportunities, should that be the case. But again, here in this same case, you could also be a little bit more stable and then continue or evolving into another job and then learn also new tasks and skills afterwards. So it really depends on the type of firm, but that should be a dialogue, because nobody is a better captain of his or her own career than yourself. So, I mean, this is really why you should be in contact with your HR, with your managing director or C-level suite, and then also see with them what else could be further developed, if new expansion ideas or new innovations should be integrated, if you could also transform your own job. And this is something we particularly like, be it within our own team, but also within the entire industry.
So I love that you've used the word innovation, and clearly we're going through a period of huge amounts of change, given I came up with a question from chat. So what do you think are the skills that are going to be needed by those entering the industry in the next 5 years? You know, my daughter's 18 and a half, back to go to finish her baccalaureate and go to university. What are going to be the skills that you think these young people are going to need, Stephane?
I mean, classical university studies in the past were more about, let's say, generalistic content and knowledge, which is absolutely valid, because here you're also learning to learn for the future and also learning specific techniques and how to adapt also to different firms, to different segments. And in the end, all these technical skills will be required. So specialization at one moment should also be further envisaged. But all in all, here, what will be required in the future will be a high dose of adaptability, because here you will need to be very agile. You will need to adapt also to the field, your environment, to your firm. And sometimes even in the best industries, some heavy changes might happen. So for example, during my own career, I had, if I can call it like that, the chance, opportunity to live through 3 transactions of firms, either being then sold to another firm. Sometimes they were even transforming the firm that, let's say strongly, that it did not resemble anymore the initial business model. And sometimes it was just like again here, kind of a transformation, and where then integration is very important. As we would say, life is not, let's say, just an easy journey. You should be completely open for change. You should know in advance that it's not just a fairy tale, that you will also sometimes go through rougher times, that also those will give you potentially the best lessons of your entire life, be it professional or personal, and that those you should really build on and upon. So from that perspective, I would say, yes, AI, if now that really gets as quickly implemented as we all think, will be one of the very important and central ingredients, where then the suggestion would be to really test yourself as much as you can with the tool. It's not just a small chatbot or an agent which will do your homework, it's much more. So you should really, and this is the positive view, to also integrate the human plus the robotics, the AI, and the artificial intelligence together in order to reach great results and then potentially also more performance in the future. But again, that does not hinder you to do really classical studies, to have a very strong and robust foundation. But again, the intellectual curiosity will be another important ingredient, and also then your flexibility, a little bit like the title of your great show.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, in your own career, Stephane, what would you say are the two traits that you have that have probably brought you the success that you've had? What do you think those might be?
I would say it would be perseverance.
Mm-hmm.
And also self-belief. So, I mean, you can be self-confident, you can believe in your destiny, in your own ambitions, but sometimes you need also some external ingredients into that whole equation, which can be luck or very important persons who motivate you, who inspire you. And from that perspective, that gives then afterwards this specific trajectory, which might be then quite successful or sometimes a little bit less. But in the end, we are all learning all the time. And this is a little bit, in the end, what counts. So it should be also a mix of enthusiasm and passion somewhere also, which are very important, specifically for me, in my eyes. And that would be, from my perspective, the two key growth engines that I highly appreciated and would like to recommend and use also.
So I know that you're a very visionary person, Stephane, and if you're thinking about the vision for the LPEA and for the industry, if you could wave a magic wand and have a massive impact on the industry, what do you think is the thing that could be done to make this industry even stronger and better? What would you say?
With a wand or without, I think the end goal would be to achieve a fully fledged ecosystem in Luxembourg, specifically around private equity and venture capital, meaning that after having successfully achieved the different steps of moving from and back to a middle office, it would be really to have also more transactions and fundraising actually located in Luxembourg. This is a mid-long-term ambition, which we absolutely need to fulfill and execute together, with or without magic, as I was saying. But I think we have some different angles and also some potential boosters or accelerators within our game and the ecosystem, which could make that a reality faster than we would expect. So from that perspective, that would further enrich, also back to your question, the appetite for youngsters to join the financial services and industry, to not just be stuck with different cliches where they think it's not super interesting, or it's always the same, or it's kind of quite cold. No, in the end, when you really look at the strengths of private equity and venture capital, it's really all about value creation in its modern version. So really transforming firms which have been acquired into new successes, be it EU or international ones, and then afterwards really to move on to another one. So it's really kind of not a conquest, but it's really kind of transformation of firms, of creating value, of adding jobs, of investing into research and development, innovation, and sometimes having really bold dreams for be it the civilization, but also eventually also for just your firm. And for me, progress has always been a key component of, let's say, human history. And also then the specific requirements are really like the fuel of this kind of human invention, which is pushing us forwards into new directions and sometimes simply reducing the limits and boundaries. For example, space might sound a little bit crazy for the moment, but there is honestly something very interesting to further develop or exploit in the future.
Yeah. So what's the space for the industry, do you think, Stefan?
I mean, the obvious first one is that we have already different venture capitalist firms and managers who have invested into space technology. It's not directly here the sci-fi parts of harvesting asteroids or doing time travel, but it's really way more concrete experiments which could be quite helpful. I mean, the idea of creating moon bases or to explore based on Musk's vision, at least the space one, of Mars, are very interesting from and bold, I would say. So from that, for that specific angle, this is really worthwhile checking. And Luxembourg had also placed itself really as a very pioneering country in this space economy segment. So to also look at what else and realistically could be developed in the meantime is something completely meaningful. So it's not just now kind of imagining something in 30 or 50 years. If we integrate properly AI, I think many of those science-based innovations will be accelerated in the future. We usually talk about the central theme of energy, but also health could be very important and highly benefit from those kind of, again, inventions or models that are being developed.
Mm. You use the word, Stefan, meaningful, and we're talking about space. So, what would you say is your North Star? What gets you out of bed in the morning? What drives you to do what you do, Stefan?
What I like is together with the team, with our governance and governing bodies, but also the entire membership, it's try to create really value. And that's important. So to have that entrepreneurial spirit, to have that flame, to tell you and ask you, okay, what else could we develop today again? Where should we look at new opportunities? What can be kind of transformed in the meantime into something bigger or stronger? What else could we finance together with that specific private money in order to really do something good, potentially also for the earth, and highly recommended, honestly. So around impact and ESG key, even if it has been so complicated because of some regulation, it doesn't mean that, let's say, the purpose of implementing such policies and also strategies is not meaningful anymore, really not. So from that perspective, when you look at how much money you would request or need to do a reindustrialization and with then also cleaner energies, that's, I mean, all in all, something which we should certainly continue pursuing. Again, but it should always be in a more engineering style, not now just pure theoretical research. So from that perspective, that is how we should also achieve, but also be able to explain in a clear manner what we have tried to achieve, what we have done so, and what will be then also the potential future of it.
Mm. So talking about private equity and vision and human beings, you must have met a lot of people in your life and in your career who were in the private equity space. You know, is there one or two people? I'm sure there's lots of amazing people, but is there one or two people that you could say, wow, this human being is really special, and this is why. So I'd be curious and interested.
I have to admit that the entire PVC industry at its large is quite of well equipped with really great brains and brilliant people. So it's a bit like an elite of investment management, financial knowledge, operations, and also, again, here some entrepreneurial spirit. So that makes it from the beginning on quite unique, a little bit sometimes exclusive, but that's where you find really big entrepreneurs who are doing so many projects during their entire life and career that it becomes really a super inspiration. And here, as an example, we could cite, for example, a person that we had where we had the chance to meet Mr. David Rubenstein, one of the co-founders of Carlyle, at one of the international private equity conferences, where we had a nice discussion during a drink after the whole kind of session. And it was very enlightening and inspiring. So it was really meeting one of the oracles of private equity, but absolutely taking time to exchange with people and to remain open on different ideas. And also then to have that kind of prestige around of having been and being super successful, and then also still taking time to share with also other persons, not knowing them directly, and also a little bit younger persons. So that was quite good. Not directly linked to financial services, but I find Musk still quite interesting, despite I'm not talking about the political career on the recent part around communications. We are really focusing here on re-engineering the car with Tesla, but way more SpaceX. So to come back to that kind of space odyssey, to have just one private person having the guts and the inspiration or the vision to really reopen that whole topic, which was a little bit more on kind of a very slow mode, that I found personally interesting. And we always said, just being, let's say, citing a few good old TV series, that yes, space is the final frontier, and we need to look at it, because here, I mean, we need to also respect our Earth, but in the end, we also need to, again, do a kind of, like you had during the big explorations, again, a nice leap forward into kind of new things we could further develop. And some scenarios could have, let's say, envisaged some things where we are lagging behind compared to, for example, great cult books in the field. So that's why let's re-accelerate a little bit. And I'm quite confident that AI might be quite helpful again, and also preserve humanity on different kind of levels. Be it then again the health angle, because yes, also there I think there is so much still we can discover about our bodies, how to preserve them. It's very important, because sometimes you hear about lots of, let's say, stories which are quite sad. And I think here with more technology, with also an acceleration, we could do better. And then in the future, also then to reinverse now more the ecological part or the environmental angle of now here, how we work on Earth, how we spend the resources, and certainly also create the energy. I think, again, that energetical part is really at the core of it.
Yeah, fascinating. So we're recording this on May the 5th, actually, Stephane. But yesterday was May the 4th, which is May the 4th be with you, of course.
Always.
Apparently, always. So Yoda, obviously, fantastic, wise character. If Yoda was giving some wise counsel to this whole ecosystem, what would Yoda be telling us right now, do you think, Stephane?
I think he would recommend us to be wise on some specific topics, prudent, depending on with what we play. So the flame, and then, but he would also recommend us to fulfill our mission, which would be then also then to move humanity and humankind forwards in the right direction for the greater goods, and together with then some, let's say, like-minded people who share the same vision, and then also remain on the very positive side, as we were saying, around that famous leadership. So not destroying, but really more creating, but again, for the greater goods. And what we always liked was a little bit the very pragmatic part of saying what you do and also doing what you say. So from that perspective, that's always an easy ingredient to integrate in either speeches or actions, and that makes them, again, not a secret sauce, but the whole magic and sometimes the great execution.
Absolutely. So, Stephane, when you're not doing this incredible job and being a wonderful dad, what is it that you love doing in your spare time?
Yes, I try to be always a lovely dad, but sometimes those good kids need to listen a little bit more. But except for that, I mean, the whole angle, which I like particularly, is to also be able to motivate them. It's really to try to create a flame which will be theirs, not mine, me kind of invocating different things or forcing them to like things which they don't, but to be an inspirational example, if I can so, that is something I particularly like on those relationships. But back to your question, yes, what do I like to do? Yes, a little bit of sports, that's important to remain healthy. I mean, the Romans had understood that quite well, but also some nice wines, and food is not bad either. And then finally, some traveling, discovering the world, reading good books, also with an historical angle, so to also see what was done in the past, to sometimes reflect on what is happening nowadays in the present and what could happen in the future. It's quite interesting.
I'm
And
curious,
then,
what's your favorite book you've ever read? What's the best book you've ever read?
oh, the best book. That's a complicated one.
Mm.
When you start reading many good ones, yes, difficult to cite. But what I particularly like for the moment, to answer also on that, would be the 19th century in France around Balzac and Zola, where they are a little bit at the start of capitalism, if we can call it like that, and how the market finds its way through, which kind of practices were done at that time, with extreme poverty on one side, but also then on the other side, the bourgeoisie, la noblesse, etc., and how you were able, if at all, to make it during such complicated times without the right burst. So that's why also sometimes we are very happy to be back in modern times, where on paper and in reality everything is feasible. So it's really a question, and I strongly believe in meritocracy. So I mean, it's certainly working hard, but also, I mean, the merit should always be then kind of properly rewarded. And if you have the capacity, the intelligence, or at least, I mean, the power to do so, I think that should be kind of a nice, engaging inspiration also for others. And also, again, here, your engine, if possible.
Stéphane Pesch, CEO of the LPEA, thank you so much for being a flame and for your mission for creating for the greater good of our wonderful country and the planet. Thank you for being with us on Flex in the City, Stephane.
Thanks a lot, Rachel, for having me. It was really a great exchange.
And that's a wrap for this episode of Flex in the City. We hope that you found inspiration and valuable nuggets of wisdom to elevate your leadership journey. Don't miss out, subscribe on your favourite platform, and if you enjoyed the episode, please do leave us a review. Your feedback really matters. Thank you.